In a quiet corner of Anambra State, tucked between the white skies of the east, lived the man whose entire world had been reduced to one heartbeat, his daughter. Arinze was a school teacher and a widower, but to those who knew him well, he was a fortress of quiet strength. He had once been full of laughter, the kind that echoed after village meetings. But all that changed the day his wife, Olanna, died from a fever that came suddenly, and with that left everything. From that moment, his life narrowed down to one vow: Olanna will lack nothing. He never remarried, not because he didn't get offers, he did, but because no other woman could fit the place Olanna once filled, and no one else was going to help him raise his daughter. She was his everything. He gave up outings, friendships, even sleep. He marked her growth in inches on the kitchen wall. He packed her lunch every morning, read her books at night, and made sure she heard the words, "You can be anything," more times than "be careful." She was bright, bold, curious. She would ask him at 7 years old, "Papa, why do people die?" And instead of dismissing her, he'd say, "Because life makes rooms for new stories. But some stories live forever." When Olanna turned 16, he sold his motorcycle, the only luxury he owned, to buy her a second-hand laptop. He'd saved for 5 years for her to study abroad. When the visa arrived in the mail, he wept. Not because she was leaving, but because he had kept his promise to his wife. "I will carry her dreams even if it breaks my back." The day Olanna boarded her flight to America, she turned at the gate and saw her father trying not to cry. He gave her a food flask and a Bible, and then he whispered, "Live, my daughter, live loudly." America was cold, not just the weather, the silence, the rushing people, the way no one looked up. Olanna felt like a dot in the storm. She buried herself in studies. Medical school was ruthless. Brilliant minds from every corner of the world, and professors that barely even remembered names. She learned quickly. To survive, she had to be invincible. Then came Chuka Nwosu, fellow intern, also Nigerian, also Igbo. He had the charm of a polished brass button, a fast mouth, and an even faster climb. He made her laugh in the cafeteria, left sticky notes on her desk, and remembered her father's name. I didn't fall. I walked into it, slowly, carefully, and still, somehow, foolishly. Their connection was passionate but complicated. When it worked, it felt like home. But Chuka was ambitious enough to put success over everything else. One night, during their second year of internship, they fought in the parking lot. She had caught wind of a rumor he had been close to a resident. He didn't deny it. He only shrugged. "I never promised you forever, Olanna. This is survival. You want love? I want legacy." It broke her. That night, Olanna sat on the rooftop of the hospital, staring into the freezing dark and wondering if she had mistaken loneliness for love. She didn't call her father. She couldn't bear to sound broken. Room 306. That's where she met Liam Whittaker, a patient with a failing heart, but the spirit of someone who still believed in magic. He was in his mid-30s, sharp jaw, white blonde hair, blue-gray eyes that made it impossible to lie to him. He had been wealthy once, still was, but now he was tethered to IV lines and cardiac monitors. You're different, you know. Most people walk in and see a dying man. You walked in and said, "Hi Liam, I'm Dr. Olanna," like I was going to live. Olanna was cautious, always professional. But Liam, he didn't care for rules. He flirted, made jokes, he gave her books to read, and asked her about Nigeria. He told her she had a beautiful name. "I'm your doctor, not your friend," she said. "And I'm not just a patient. I'm a man who happens to be dying and who happens to like you." She rolled her eyes, and yet she came back to room 306 a little more often than she needed to. The hospital called a meeting. There was a donor heart. Liam matched. He was next on the list. He was elated. He laughed in the hospital bed, tears shining in his eyes. This is it. This is my second chance. But fate has its own schedule. 10 seconds. That's all it took. Someone at a partner hospital was added to the wait list 10 seconds before Liam. They were sicker, younger, so they got the heart. Olanna saw his face fall, like someone had unplugged the sun from his soul. I was supposed to leave. She wanted to hug him, but she didn't. She sat with him in silence, both of them drowning in it. After that disappointment, Liam became quieter. The spark in him dimmed. The doctors decided on an LVAD, a mechanical pump to help his heart do what it no longer could. It was invasive, life-saving, temporary. But to Liam, it felt like a leash, a reminder that even while alive, he wasn't free. He returned home with the LVAD stitched to his chest and the weight of uncertainty stitched into his spirit. Olanna checked on him, sometimes officially, sometimes as a favor to a colleague. And Liam, he held nothing back. Do you ever stop being a doctor, Olanna? Or is it just your way of hiding? There's a strict non-fraternization policy between staff and patients. You know that, Olanna responded. And if I stop being a patient, what then? She had no answer, but the truth was she was already falling. Not in some fireworks kind of way, but slowly, steadily, like water seeping through the cracks of her resolve. Then came the call. Liam was rushed back in. He had exercised too much, ignored protocol. His body wasn't ready. You could have died, Olanna said. Maybe that wouldn't have been so bad. That broke her. Because what he meant was, I'm tired. Then came another heart. One that could be Liam's, but only if he was sicker than the top current candidate. He wasn't. Not yet. Olanna sat in the staff lounge, fingers shaking around a cup of untouched tea, her mind spinning. Rules, ethics, boundaries, oaths, and love. She made the call. 3 interns from her program, her friends, all loyal, all frightened. If his condition deteriorates, even slightly, he'll move to the top of the list, Olanna said. Olanna, you're asking us to play God. No, I'm asking you to help love survive. So they did, quietly, secretly. They tampered with his LVAD, just enough to make his vitals unstable, but not enough to kill him. Except it nearly did. Liam flatlined twice, but he made it. And when he opened his eyes and saw her face, "You did it for me." She nodded, and he wept. Not because of pain, but because someone had chosen him at the cost of everything, literally. The heart came. The surgery was long, complicated, miraculous, but Liam survived. The hospital erupted in quiet, cautious celebration, but not for Olanna. Word got out, whispers turned into statements, investigations were opened, friends turned distant, her badge was revoked, her license suspended. She left the hospital with nothing but a cardboard box and a shattered reputation. Liam didn't know, not yet. He was recovering. He smiled again. He asked about trips, about cities they could visit after meeting her father. But his body had other plans. 2 weeks after, he suffered a stroke. Too sudden, too long. And this time, even love couldn't keep him. He died on a quiet Thursday, in the same room where he once whispered the dreams of Paris and Cape Town. Olanna sat at his bedside, holding his cold hand, and for the first time in her life, she didn't know what came next. Weeks passed. She moved through life like a ghost. Her father called often. She answered less. She didn't know how to say, "I give everything," and lost. Then one morning, a letter arrived from Liam's lawyer. He had changed his will before the transplant. Everything, his estate, his account, his home, everything, to her. She didn't smile. She folded the paper, pressed it to her chest, and whispered his name like prayer. Some stories don't end in forever. Some stories don't get to say goodbye. But some stories live in between heartbeats, between choices, between love and loss. Olanna never went back to medicine, but she started something new, a foundation for transplant patients and for hope. And though she never wore a white coat again, she saved more lives than she ever counted, all because of one man, one moment, one heart between them. That's it from Tales by Sade. Until we meet again beneath the stars, keep the wisdom flowing.